Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. And depending on when you're listening to this, I hope you also had a good New Year. I imagine with everyone being off of work, people probably aren't listening to the podcast as regularly as they typically are, where they're trying to drone out, the boredom of corporate life. But no, let's not get, too existential here. This is Jared. I'm with my co-host, Adrian, today. It is December 27th. Adrian, how you holding up, man?
I'm holding well, some holiday cheer brought through by Big Santa Man himself. Always tends to help out around the house. And we had kind of delayed our Christmas decorating just out of sheer busyness, and I hadn't had the opportunity to do it. And it was like, dude, it was like 10 days before Christmas. I hadn't felt any cheer at all. I went to the attic, I busted those totes down. Clarissa got home from work. I was like, you know what time it is. She was like, I'm not trying to do any of this. And we hammered it out. And I tell you, dude, the cheer just freaking exploded. I mean, you walk in and you feel it. I got into the spirit. It was great. So I enjoyed the holidays. It was a great run of days here in the Bermudez family. How about yours, Jared?
It was great. I can't complain. Very low key, which was nice. Yeah, I mean, really no complaints. It's just a low-key Christmas. And honestly, it was just nice to get away from it all. And I don't go back to work until January 6th. So I've really been enjoying the slow pace and, also not having as much football stuff to be as worried about. So it's been a very, very good break for me, and it's just getting started. So
I tell you what, you will never have an Alamo Audible post-game podcast 6 days after the game, 5 days after the game, unless it's like Christmas.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yeah, and it's good. It is good to get a little decompression. Well, I have questions then. One, what are you going to do for your next 2 weeks of not having to work, not having to watch college football? You'll watch it, but from an enjoyment, not from a working standpoint. Yeah.
Right.
But what's on the agenda?
Yeah. So there's a few different things. I mean, first off, I have a lot of like house projects I've been putting off for football season. A lot of wedding planning that I've kind of been punting on throughout the fall. That's been kicking into gear. So I've already been working on those things. I have some long-term projects that kind of tie into Alamo Audible, which we'll be working on and have been working on. Mm-hmm. And, just reading books and playing a lot of video games and drinking, I mean,
partying it up, baby.
Yeah.
That's what the holidays are for. It's what the holidays are for, is for having a good time. And
I will say, though, the holiday got off to a pretty demanding start for me to kind of transition into the bowl game. I drove up after work on Friday through rush hour traffic all the way to Frisco. I got to the hotel like 10:30, 11:30, something like that. Then worked at Frisco on Tuesday, went to the game, drove all the way back to Houston that night, got home at 2:30.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Driving right back to Houston. That's crazy.
And then woke up at 7 a.m. to get breakfast with my future in-laws.
Oh, at 7?
Yeah.
Y'all didn't do like brunch, y'all did hardcore breakfast. Serious.
They would have went at 6 a.m. probably if it weren't for my complaining.
Oh, be damn! Wow, the in-laws tick differently. That is crazy. I respect the 6 a.m. breakfast, but
they raise cattle, right? So they have to be up that early to feed the cows. So it comes with the territory.
Okay.
Now people are like, oh man, I forget Jared's from the country.
And you got miles on you at that 7 a.m. breakfast table. Just, yeah. Dude, you're wearing those miles.
But yeah, it wasn't too bad, man. I mean, obviously not the outcome that we wanted, but it was a good, entertaining game. It was great to see so many friends out there, so many podcast listeners who got to meet for the first time. Frisco wasn't a bad bowl destination. It's not sexy, but I thought it was a good spot for a bowl game.
Yeah, enjoyed the stadium atmosphere, the environment that it presented.
The stadium was fine.
Toyota Stadium.
I would say, like, if there weren't that many UTSA fans, it'd probably been pretty bland.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was a very it was a soccer stadium.
The orange. Yeah, I know the orange.
Very cookie cutter
on the sidelines. Yeah.
It wasn't like going to like a UTEP game, even if there's no one there, like you're in the Sun Bowl and it's like got this majesty to it. And like, you can kind of feel the history surrounding you. Can't really say that about the Toyota. stadium at Frisco.
Right.
But just
Yeah.
like the setup was cool because it's like this, like kind of like a small town, small suburb or whatever outside of Dallas on the north end of the suburbs. But there's like all these restaurants and bars all within walking distance of the stadium. There were multiple hotels like in the parking lot of the stadium.
Mhm.
So it was really a nice setup. I was able to kind of jump around and see people. And yeah, obviously I couldn't really enjoy the festivities all that much because I was doing all the driving back and forth. But in a more normal situation, it'd been a pretty killer setup, especially had UTSA got the win and I was staying under the night and I could go out and celebrate, then it'd have been even more fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Just, good bowl experience. And I always tell people it's more of a celebration of the season than anything else. And that's exactly how it felt. So
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And everyone was in there, good spirits, having a good time, celebrating the best season of all time. And yeah, I tend to have gotten the same sort of reaction whenever I see how the vibes were out there. I was in Houston. We decided to do watch party here at the house. And you like to think, going to have a few friends over, watch the game, but it's never that simple, right? So, pretty much Monday and Tuesday were spent preparing to have company over, even though it was only like 8 people. I think there were 10 people here, including me and my fiance. So it wasn't large scale, but there's the grocery shop and there's the cleaning, there's the setting everything up, there's the getting things in order, then the cooking part so, sure enough, we had ourselves a pretty jam-packed entry into the break as well, just preparing for the company. And it was a great time. Watched the game, saw the loss, but I'll tell you, the spirit was not broken after the loss. As a matter of fact, Flip Cup started after the game ended. So we were very much doing all right still and celebrating the win. And we took our pictures in front of the UTSA flag and it was good.
Excellent.
It was good. Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So UTSA falls 38-24 to number 24 San Diego State.
Our 6th straight loss in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area.
Man, it's an ugly stat, dude.
We have been winless in DFW since 2013, our first trip out there when we beat UNT. So now we are a 1-6 in DFW.
Barring a 2022 bowl game in the Metroplex, which, to be fair, can completely definitely happen.
3 in a row, give it to me. Yeah,
because there's so many bowl games in the Metroplex. But assuming that UTSA doesn't get a bowl game there, then it'll be 9 years before UTSA could potentially win a game in the Metroplex.
What'll be 2023? Yeah,
a full decade.
Yeah,
that is decade. So wild, dude.
Yeah, a full decade. So there's something about that place. It's definitely a demon on this team. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know if it's the altitude. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the rain, but there's something about going up to DFW. This team cannot win in that area. We've got 4 losses to UNT and 2 bowl losses in the Metroplex.
I feel like we're like 4-1 in Houston, right? It's like, can we balance that out a little bit?
Yeah, because we smash Rice all the time. We won in
Houston
TD.
there.
Yeah, yeah, we do definitely need to even that out because we seem to have a pretty good track, and we do okay in El Paso, but we can't win up in that northern corridor for some reason, dude. But it's a big time demon. It's a big time demon. So if 2023 rolls around, we might get 2 chances to exercise because we might get North Texas and Denton and SMU in Dallas.
Yeah.
Hopefully we win one of those.
Those numbers could even out real quickly if UTSA gets hot. SMU slides a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. All of a sudden, yeah, we got 2 games in DFW every other year. Yeah, we're gonna be going there a lot more frequently, dude. So we better get used to playing out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to the Frisco Bowl, I thought the story, as much as people want to make it about all players that are missing, which we're going to get to later in the show.
Sure.
I thought the main story was that UTSA couldn't sustain their success, especially early in the game. They come out, they score right off the bat, beautiful drive to get down the field, that first touchdown, get a 3-and-out on the defensive end to start the game. But it never felt like UTSA was able to put the boot on the throat of the Aztecs and really stomp them out.
Yeah, and I'll even go another direction with it too. I think UTSA defensively was extremely unprepared, unable to stop San Diego State. I mean, this is a team that had not put up yardage like this, had not put up points like this all season long. And I mean, you talk about the opening 3 and out, but ever since then, I mean, San Diego State, Lucas Johnson, I mean, really kind of had their way with us, man, on offense, especially through the air, which they hadn't done it there all year.
Yeah.
Lucas Johnson threw 333 yards.
At a certain point, for me, like I felt like San Diego State was more deserving of respect for the way they were able to win, because UTSA took away what they wanted to do, right? They forced San Diego State to play a game that, coming into this game, they'd not been comfortable with this season. It's like airing it out and, really spreading the ball around. I mean, UTSA pretty much neutralized San Diego State's running game. And you put the ball in a quarterback that I don't know how much trust San Diego really had in Lucas Johnson coming into this game. I mean, he's not like their star player or anything like that. But that guy played a hell of a game, man. And, the UTSA coverage was very underwhelming, and they had way too many open receivers, just as they have had all year long. But on the other hand, man, Lucas Johnson threw some absolute dimes. Yep. And every time he escaped the pocket, he was able to look downfield and make a big play. Right. So on one hand, like, UTSA is certainly deserving of criticism for the way the defense played, preparation, play calling, all that stuff. But also, I really thought San Diego State played a hell of a game, man.
They did, man. And I think they beat us, on both sides of the field. But yeah, I mean, it's a team that was only putting up 27 points per game. They scored 38. They had 489 total yards. Lucas Johnson throws 24 for 36. I don't think he had been asked to give you that sort of volume on pass attempt wise all season long. And he went out there and slung the dang thing. Gets you 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9 yards per completion. San Diego State's offense has the ball for 37 minutes and 51 seconds. 38 minutes of possession, Jared, compared to 22 minutes for UTSA. There's no way you can win a ball game when the other team has the ball for 2/3 of the game and you have it for 1/3 of the game. It just can't happen. And that's what they did. They dominated in that regard. UTSA was 1 for 9 on third downs.
I saw the third down conversion percentage on my phone, like in the third or fourth quarter. I was like, oh, that can't be right. Like, there's no way. Right. Because like UTSA has been so good on third down all year long. And I don't really know what changed on that. Like, does Sincere have that much impact on the offense that they can only convert, 12% of third downs or whatever it was?
It can't be.
Play calling was weird. There were a lot of strange decisions on offense, but yeah, it was a very un-UTSA-like performance on offense, even though they did manage to put up 24 points.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, 1 for 9 on his third down.
To go back to San Diego State's offense for just a minute, though, the thing that blew my mind the most is how often either UTSA or San Diego State themselves were able to put the Aztecs in awful situations from down and distance, and the Aztecs immediately converted. I mean, how many, false starts, 3rd and 15, how many 4th and 7s? I mean,
San Diego State had 14 penalties, bro. 14 for 124 yards. They were all over the place.
I think at halftime, they had twice as many penalty yards as they had rushing yards. And for me, like, when UTSA wasn't really controlling the game at that point, I guess San Diego State, I think, kicked a field goal right to go into the half. And I was like, dude, UTSA should be winning by 2-3 scores easy.
Yes.
The fact that they weren't, that's what told me at halftime that UTSA was probably going to lose this game, especially knowing that their depth was going to be challenged in that second half with so many guys out.
It felt really, really strange going into halftime down, because up until that point, it did feel like UTSA was playing the better game. We just weren't finishing our drives, right? We weren't able to continue moving the ball downfield. And we had done a good job of still kind of keeping them at bay. It's a tight game. It's a close game, but it felt like we were controlling more of the football. But when they got that field goal going into halftime, I really think that sort of shook the momentum and sort of like the mind state of this team. The confidence, I think, really went out the window when they went into the locker room down.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I just pulled up a win probability chart for the game, and you can pick the exact moment where San Diego State kicked that field goal to go in halftime.
You're pretty much saying
ever since UTSA was like kind of controlling play by play, but it felt like there were all these big swings in the Aztecs' favor. That's kind of how I saw it as well. Is like on a play by play basis, UTSA was like right there with the Aztecs, but the big plays, and not even like big in terms of yardage, but just like situational, they tend to always break the way of San Diego State. You know, like UTSA getting stopped on 4th and 1 and being a couple inches short. UTSA only had like a handful of drop passes, but both of them would have been first down conversions on drives that they really needed to score on. You know, just a lot of stuff like that. You know, just small stuff that some of it is mental toughness
at those super crucial moments, though.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it did. It absolutely should have been a 1 or 2 score lead going into halftime. And I think a lot of the team knew that. But
I'll say too, I don't know if you agree with this. I think even if you have a fully healthy UTSA team, I still think San Diego State was the better team.
I mean, they played better, maybe does UTSA play better? We have everyone out there. Is the confidence a little bit higher? Because I mean,
sure.
And we're going to get into the guys that were missing. But I will say that there was definitely an element of surprise on the guys that got the nod. And whenever you found out that guys were going to be out, it kind of, the official announcements came so close to actual game day that, I mean, there's in the press conference with
the announcements for us, not for the players.
Sure. But even in the press conference, like Brendan Brady's like, I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, sure. I think a lot of guys were kind of surprised a little bit, and there was just probably a little bit of a shock factor there that maybe kind of took guys out of groove. But, credit to Brendan Brady, played freaking phenomenal, man. Yeah. San Diego State was clearly played to win, and they played a hell of a lot better. And look, and when so many things go wrong, eventually you check out, right? And like, that's what has happened the 2 games to DFW this season. So much went wrong in Denton against North Texas that we just sort of checked out. And I don't think we really checked out to the same degree in the Frisco Bowl, but when so many things went wrong, you almost start expecting for it to not go right, by the time you get the ball again. So I don't know. I think there was a little bit of that. We sort of just kind of succumbed to our mishaps to a degree, because that first half was a hell of a lot stronger for UTSA than the second half was.
But even then, it never really felt like UTSA was like a drastically better team than San Diego State or anything like that,
No, and they were really taking what they wanted from us on offense. Even on the ground, too, I think they did a really good job. I mean, they had 156 yards on the ground against us.
Yeah, I just hope it's a reminder for UTSA fans of like how far UTSA still has to go to truly be one of those top G5 teams year in and year out, right? But I mean, even when you're missing 10 starters or whatever, you should still be able to win what essentially amounts to a home game for UTSA, especially when you have the extra rest coming off and all of that, so I think the narrative out there that UTSA would have won this game easily if they would have had all their guys, I think is misplaced. I did think this San Diego State was a really, really, really good team. And I thought that it showed that the committee was
accurate,
justified in their rankings.
Justified. Yeah. You know what, dude? Then UTSA has their entire roster in. This game is extremely close.
Yes.
It's not by any means a walk in the park or an automatic W for UTSA. Not at all. I mean, this would have been the battle for the true number 24, I think, if we're fully healthy. But this would have been a neck and neck game. San Diego State winning by 2 touchdowns, I think, proves that, because it's not like you were out all of your captains and all of your playmakers. I mean, you still had some of the best, wide receiver hands in college football out there on the field. You still had Frank Harris out there on the field. You still had some of your dogs on defense on the field. So, yeah, I mean, this game probably should have been closer as it was. But if everyone's in there, I think it's neck and neck, man. I really do.
Yeah, and for the most part, the game was neck and neck. I mean, up until
San Diego was able to kind of run away with it at the end. Yeah.
I think that there's one drive that actually was what I want to talk about next. There's one drive, I think, that really turned this game from a back and forth neck and neck contest to like, oh, this one's like pretty much over already.
I know what drive you're talking about, Jared. I know what drive you're talking about.
Yeah. What's the middle of the third quarter? UTSA kicks it out of bounds. I think Clarence Hicks had a roughing the passer penalty. UTSA gives 45 penalty yards to San Diego State when they had cut the lead to one score. If they could even hold them to a field goal there, and then UTSA turns around and gets another touchdown, UTSA is a good position to win that game. But that was a really weird drive for UTSA. Just did not look like the Roadrunners. And they just allowed San Diego State to easily get back on the board with the touchdown. And that was the backbreaker for me. I mean, I think most people in the stadium, as soon as that drive happened, it's like, all right, where are we eating after dinner? You know, is there a Dairy Queen nearby? What time does Whataburger start serving breakfast again? I think those are some of the thoughts going through the fans' mind on that drive. But it was just so frustrating because obviously San Diego State played a great game, really, really good team. But when you give them a half of a football field of penalty yards, I mean, like a peewee team can beat you, man. Like you just can't do that stuff. And it was all unforced too. Very, very frustrating.
You're not talking about the drive after Frank Harris's interception?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think this was the one that UTSA scored a touchdown and then they kicked it out of balance and it just kind of spiraled from there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. I think the interception drive and the subsequent scoring drive from San Diego State was the game changer. It's really, really tough going into the locker room down 3 because we knew San Diego State's going to get the ball coming out. San Diego State gets the ball coming out at half and scores, goes right downfield and scores. So it's 24-14. And we have a fairly decent drive, but we stall the hell out after a false start, which killed us. We had an incomplete pass to Zachary Franklin on like a 3rd and 5. And then it's a field goal. And it's still one possession game, 17-24. And it's like, okay, UTSA is still in this. This is going to stay back and forth battle. And we force a punt. And on the very next drive, as we're driving downfield, we get up to like the 40-yard line. And Frank throws that interception. And then boom, San Diego State, after being forced to punt just a few plays earlier, goes right down and scores again. Now it's 31-17. It's a 14-point game. And it stays 14-point game all the way through. San Diego State scores again. It's 3-score touchdown at one point. But yeah, I think that was what killed us.
Yeah, it's become more and more rare, but you still see those moments where Frank Harris plays like bad Frank Harris. You know what I mean? Like that interception he threw was egregious. You know, he stared down JT that entire route.
Yeah.
He never looked to the other side of the field to like keep the safety in check. Floated the ball up there, right? So it's like, I think he was feeling like a little bit overconfident because he was able to just throw it up to the receivers all game and they were wide open. But that safety just gave him too much of a leeway to get a jump on the ball and go pick that thing off.
His passes had that soft touch on him all day. He was really putting some arc underneath his balls and getting it up in the air, trying to put it far out. But I mean, they were soft. Though that soft touch was kind of happening. But I also felt like not only the overconfidence, maybe to a degree, we were going up there and grabbing some crazy catches in the first half. Mm-hmm. But I think Superman sort of heroics kind of took over. I think he felt like he had to make something happen, right? And right. So here we are, we're down a touchdown, 17-24, and it feels like you need to score a touchdown in this game before San Diego runs away with it, which ended up being the case. And I think he felt that heroics had to come up, and he started trying to do too much, and that's what happened. We had that interception, and again, the defense can't stop him. San Diego's right downfield, 6 plays, 69 yards, scores that touchdown to make it 31-17. And we just couldn't get back to him after that. So that was tough.
I think another thing that really hurt UTSA, other than the 3rd down conversion, the 4th down conversions were really bad as well.
1 for 3.
So right. There was one. UTSA was kind of in no man's land, too close to punt, too far to kick.
True.
I think it was like 4th and 6 or something like that. And San Diego State sent like an all-out blitz, which they did a lot of. I thought they blitzed UTSA more than pretty much anyone UTSA's played this year. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a strange route combination. I think UTSA had 2 receivers and a tight end out wide. All of them seemed to run deep routes. And the tight end that was in the slot was Dan Dishman. And it looked to me, I couldn't tell if he was supposed to run like an in and up kind of route or if he was supposed to just run like a regular like dig pattern across the middle of the field. But Frank Harris was left with no check down routes, and San Diego State sent 6-7 guys on a blitz. So kind of just had to throw it up to Zachary, which he couldn't connect on.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a real missed opportunity there, because like if there had been a running back out in the flat, or if Dishman would have cut his route a little short to get open, it would have been an easy conversion. And I really, generally speaking, I don't think UTSA really made San Diego State pay for a blitz at all. I kept feeling like, okay, here comes the screen pass. They're going to catch them during a blitz, and it's going to be a big play. And then never really happened for UTSA, which I thought was kind of interesting.
The hard thing was that 2 of those 4th downs are 4th and 1.
Right.
And you're right there on the verge. And one of those crucial ones, I think it's in your film review, Jared, but it's a tie game, and it's the second quarter, like halfway through the second quarter, 14-14, 4th and 1. And we ran behind backup offensive lineman, I guess was Ernesto Alvarez. Yeah. And hole was never there. The hole was never there. And it was one of the few times that UTSA has gotten underneath center. We got underneath center for that one, which 4th and 1, I prefer for us to do that. But I think you do bring up a really, really good point when you talk about the blitzing that San Diego State did and their ability to really just kind of swallow up the middle for UTSA.
Yeah, it was interesting because it seemed like whenever San Diego blitzed, UTSA is like, okay, well, we have a one-on-one now out wide. So like, let's throw it up to those playmakers out wide. And that worked for the most part. UTSA had a lot of big explosive plays to the air in one-on-one coverage, but you have to keep that defense honest. And I don't think that UTSA did a good job of like utilizing that middle of the field. It's something that we'd seen from UTSA repeatedly throughout the year, even in some of the best performances for the offense, where they put up a lot of points, a lot of yards. It just really felt like they didn't utilize that middle of the field well. And hopefully, with Dishman, maturing and coming in as a sophomore, got some great recruits coming in at tight end. Hopefully that becomes more of the repertoire is to use the tight end to attack that middle of the field. But yeah, it seemed like UTSA just kind of gave that part of the field up. And I know some of that was like the scheme for San Diego State. They always had linebackers in the middle, but there were a lot of plays where I'm like, man, if Frank could just tuck it and run, he would get 10 yards easy, so I kind of felt like UTSA didn't do a great job of keeping them honest in that regard. But, all in all, I think it really comes down to the defense's inability to get a stop more than anything that the offense did. Against a team like San Diego State, 24 points is usually enough to beat them, right? I mean, if you look at their week by week scoring output, but it got kind of ugly on defense.
Yeah, it really did, man. It really did get ugly. So the other thing that I noticed in the game is Frank Harris really didn't use his feet at all.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of times, he'll have those option plays and he'll decide to tuck and run and kick out the sideline and pick up a first down with his feet. We really didn't see him do that much at all. I mean, do you think that's because the opportunity wasn't there to do it, or was he trying to do too much with his arms?
It's probably a mix. I think UTSA felt really good about their matchups out wide, excuse me. And, they were right to feel that way. That number 9 cornerback for the Aztecs just got toasted all night long. He had no chance against UTSA's receivers. So I think like both from a game planning perspective and also just like, Frank making his reads and stuff, it probably seemed like, we can just keep attacking out wide and it's going to work. But I think as we saw in the interception, if you do that for too long without using the rest of the field, those safeties are going to have an opportunity to go and pick one off if you throw, a softer pass like Frank did.
Yeah, San Diego State really controlled this one, man. And I think it goes to show when you look at that time of possession is like the most jarring thing. They were able to stay on the field and keep the ball out of UTSA's hands. It's just
what it comes down to. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have the ball, you can't score. That's it. Yeah. I agree with you. I do think this game was more about what San Diego State did right than it was about what UTSA did wrong. Although we didn't play our best ball, I think San Diego was better regardless. They did play their best ball.
Yeah. And really have to give them credit for the way that they evolved their offense to work in this game. I don't know if they planned to throw that much coming into this one or not. If they did, more power to them. But for me, I think it was more of like, okay, the run's not working. Let's shift to this more spread offense. And, that number 45 receivers for San Diego State, man, that's not going to know how to get open, man.
Well, dude, and they had a pretty good disbursement. I mean, they ran the ball 32 times. Lucas Johnson threw the ball 36 times.
Yeah.
I mean, they were pretty even across the field. I mean, you can't control the clock for 37 minutes without having a good ground game. And they put 156 yards on the ground on us. And it might not seem that way because all the scoring was done through the air.
Mm-hmm.
But they're pretty salty on both forms of attacking.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like you said, it doesn't feel like the big plays were all through the air, only at 3.9 yards per carry. But yeah, I mean, they were pretty efficient on the ground. It just wasn't like the ground and pound slaughterhouse that
it was like that
coming
slow, methodical, bit by bit wearing it out. Yeah. I mean, you definitely saw a tired defense, dude, by the time the fourth quarter came around.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's do some Patreon shout outs real quick, and then we'll talk about this whole situation with all the players missing heading into the bowl.
Yes.
So we did have 2 new subs this week. Big shout outs to Jordan, aka JP Williams, old friend of mine, longtime listener to the podcast. Kevin Hart as well, both joined us at the Insider tier on Patreon. As always, thank you to our big money donors, Ben Tovar, Tyler Turner, Nolan Mankai, Rick Cortez of Red Road Grillers, Zach Espericueta, the San Antonio Podcast Network. So our board of trustees members, Maddie Digitique, John Alwell in 1836 Carnegie Sada, Lena Press of Los Dos Rowdy Tailgating, and Gary and Ruben of the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate.
Should we give him some Christmas cumbia as well?
Right now?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Doesn't that feel right? Doesn't that feel good? Get you moving a little bit.
Yeah, it's like off-season cumbia. Feels a little bit more like exercise than in-season celebration.
You remember we were walking to the UAB game. We saw Jazzercise in Hemisphere Park.
Yeah.
We could do Alamo Dome Audible cumbia size in Lot C. Yeah.
I think all of us have a few pounds to shed after the season. So,
dude, I love that. Yeah, it had to be like early tailgate lots though. It's gonna be like right when the tailgate starts in the morning. That's when we'll do cumbia size, a little 35-minute class in, and then let's go, baby. And then we'll continue to cumbia, but this time with tequila for the rest of the afternoon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the big talking point on Twitter, both leading into the game and afterwards, was, I don't know, I guess a sense of betrayal from the UTSA fan base that was pretty, I guess, disappointing. And I thought a little bit misinformed as well from our fan base.
Look, it's our first rodeo, man.
Exactly.
It's our first rodeo. We're not used to this. We don't know how this world works. This is the norm. This is how it is. Whenever you get good, it gets even worse. So, yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you have a successful football team with successful football players. They don't play in the bowl game because they got bigger fish to fry. That's the fact of the matter, man.
Well, I think also, I don't think people realize how few of the players actually, quote unquote, opted out.
Right. It was a mix of things.
Yeah, it was a
big mix of things. Yeah.
Honestly, truly, there was one guy that could have played but didn't. And that's Sincere McCormick. Right. Tariq Woolen opted out, but he was hurt. He played hurt in the championship game, sacrificed his body to this university to bring home a championship trophy.
That's right.
Hurt himself again, didn't finish that game. And of course, he went on to prepare for the NFL draft because it's a quick turnaround, man. Draft's not that far away. The combine's not that far away.
Yeah.
So even if Tariq wanted to play, I don't think that he'd been able to because he got hurt and he got hurt again. And I think people got really confused because a lot of players put out statements of like, while I'm not going to play in the bowl game, I will be preparing for my pro day. And I think people took that as I'm not playing in the bowl game because I'm preparing for the pro day, when that's not what those statements said. And that is not what happens. The pro day is like not till the summer. Like,
right.
Sitting out for your pro day is not a thing, right? But I think people work themselves up into this like weird anger because they didn't know what was going on. And I think people put a lot of grief on players that didn't deserve it because people were frustrated and confused, right? And I wish that we would have been able to record our podcast after some of this stuff started coming out, because I kind of started to see the writing on the wall of like where this thing was going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I wish we could have addressed this on the podcast leading into it. But it's not the situation where like 20 guys just decided they didn't want to play in the bowl game. Like, that's really not what happened.
Yeah, it's a lot of things involved. That's injuries, it's COVID, it's sickness, it's grades.
Grades
right?
was the big one, dude.
And then you have a few guys that are in fact, trying to preserve their bodies and prepare to maybe get a shot at the league. But that's, probably the smaller percentage of share when it comes down to our 20 guys that were out. And even then, regardless of whatever the reason is, these guys don't have any obligation to have to go and play in a bowl game. And I think that's just one thing that college football fan has not caught up to college football itself, the entity of college football, and that the fan still is enamored with the bowl game, and they worship the bowl game, and that the bowl game is everything. When in reality, college football teams, the bowl game is not that at all. It's really, it's just a constellation. Like you said, Jared, it's a celebration of the season. It's not, something that you're going into to get a skin on the wall, like how it was, in the BCS era, not how it is if you're going to a New Year's Six Bowl. Maybe you could treat it like that. But I mean, dude, for the freaking Tropical Cafe Smoothie Bowl, that's not a program defining. It's just not. And UTSA fans will always cherish your first bowl win, but it's not a big freaking deal. It just isn't. And bowl games in general aren't a big deal like they were 15, 20 years ago. They're not.
I would also say, I think a lot of this is really specific to UTSA because we've never won a bowl game. And I think the fans like care deeply about that. And I totally understand that. Like,
I get it.
But I think that people need to realize, like, when you look at college football across the nation, the bowl is not what it used to be. It, like the old days where two teams would go out to the Orange Bowl and there'd be this big parade and there'd be 60,000 people in the stands. It's just not like that anymore, man.
It doesn't happen. It does not.
Like literally half the teams in the country go to a bowl game nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not
special.
It's not. Like, it sucks that ESPN has turned the bowls into that it's just
the bowl is the participation
fodder.
Trophy type of shit. Yeah,
it's just fodder for TV ratings, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, having been in that stadium for the bowl, it did not feel like a special occasion whatsoever.
I'll tell you what, and I think the consensus is more with like college football fan that is a little bit older, because a lot of the younger fans that I was talking to and go with, I mean, they didn't really seem to mind at all that guys were missing out on bowl games. And I'm not here to attack boomer fans. Don't come at me with that. But what I'm saying is, I think those that have been watching college football for so long still have this tie that the bowl game is that big of a deal, right? They still kind of hold it in that perspective, but just it's changed so much in the last 10 years. Just like the whole landscape of college football has changed so much in the last 10 years, that the bowl really is. Yeah. It's fodder for TV ratings. It's a participation prize. It's let's just get some more money into the pocketbooks and have college football go all the way through December every week. And, it's nothing more than that. The Fiesta, the smoothie, the Tropical Cafe smoothie Frisco Bowl.
I think you got like 50% of that right.
It's not. Thank you. Yeah, it's just not something that, the guys are going to go break their backs for, and they shouldn't, especially after winning a Conference USA championship. You've got to understand, how much bigger of a damn deal that Conference USA championship is than going to a bowl game. If UTSA doesn't make the championship game, maybe there's more guys committed to showing up to the bowl. Maybe if they lose the championship game,
I think that's what happened with San Diego State. If they would have lost, if they would have had less COVID guys out for the conference championship game and they would have beat Utah State, they probably would have had more players opt out. Like that number 99 defensive end, he probably would have opted out because he's definitely going high in the draft. They got to hand it to him in their bowl game. They were pissed off. They got smoked, right? And guys didn't see their careers ending that way. But for the seniors for UTSA, like that was the dream all along, was to get that conference championship trophy, right?
We did what we came to do, baby. Yeah.
And man, I saw some crazy takes of people saying like this ruined the season and I'm never going to go to a bowl game again and stuff like that. I was like, gosh, guys, get a grip, man.
That's right. Now. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, what it really comes down to is, this is our first rodeo. As UTSA continues to stay good and continues to make bowl games, we'll get used to that. This is the way the world works.
Look, there are teams that are just kind of back their way out of bowl games. Obviously this year you're seeing it a lot, but historically, I mean, pretty much every single year, there's one or two teams that just decide they don't want to play in a bowl game that they qualified for.
Yeah. They're just like, no,
a bowl game is literally an exhibition and it's not like the end all be all. Right. So I don't know. Yeah. It is what it is, but I want to talk more about the grade stuff. Because I think the grades was a majority of the reason why players were missing from this bowl game.
Let's get into it.
I think it's also the most concerning because if this is a systematic long-term thing, then this is going to have a serious negative impact on the program.
Also, I feel like grades was something that this program used to harp on being, I think back to the Wilson era. It was like we had more academic All-Americans than we had on the, but we were always kind of priding ourselves on having a high academic standard. So you're right. This is sort of a new problem.
Yeah. Say what you will about Frank Wilson. He graduated guys.
That's right.
Like APR is really high.
Do we know? We don't know who's out with what, right?
No. And that's why it's so hard to really talk about this because I heard from multiple people that the COVID was negligible or not even really a thing as far as like who was out with COVID. So we know it was a mix of grades, the flu, COVID, injury, of course, player opt-outs.
And I think we could probably say that injury and grades probably had the loin share.
Yes, definitely.
Right. And then like a super small percentage NFL and maybe a little bit larger percentage for actual sickness, flu, COVID. But probably the large portions are mix of grades and injury. The guys are banged the hell up. Sure. Can't fault them for that. But grades, man, it definitely has never been an issue on this team. And if it is a systematic thing, that's a huge issue going forward.
So one thing I want to point out, and not to say that this caused any issues or this decision was made for any particular reason, but I did notice that UTSA had changed some of the leadership on the academic side of the house within the athletic department within the season. So
interesting.
I don't know if that caused issues where people that are supposed to be helping these guys progress their degrees, there was some mix up, or if the previous person wasn't doing a good job. I don't know any of those details or anything like that, but I think it's worth pointing out that that's a thing. But for me, what I want to know, and I doubt we'll ever get this information, but what I want to know is, was it underclassmen that filled classes that weren't eligible to play? Or was it the super seniors that gave up on school? Because you don't think, and you don't even know that your bowl game is going to happen after the semester ends when grades are finalized. And I also wonder, like, if UTSA had played like on the Saturday to start the bowl season, like, would they have been eligible then? Like, I don't know when the semester ends from a grade perspective. Now, if like all the super seniors that missed because like they knew their career was over and they stopped going to class, that sucks. And I hate that those guys are not going to take the opportunity to get their graduate degrees. Sure. But I can definitely understand it, right? Like, you're just here to play ball. You want to be a coach, whatever. You already have your degree, right?
And because there's so many super seniors this year, is that inflated, right? Yeah. And maybe, not something that's systematic. It's just sort of a one-off thing.
And that's my hope, right? It's like a lot of these guys like knew they weren't going to be around to finish, or they wouldn't be able to afford.
Let's go get this conference championship, and then and that's it, right off into the sunset. Yeah,
right, exactly, exactly. So if that's the case, it's disappointing, but I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it. Now, if some of those underclassmen that missed the game missed it because they're failing classes, that's a big red flag. That's a big issue. Yes. Successful programs do not lose guys for grades. You can't have that happen, period.
And hate it to be, someone that's getting snaps and starting every single week, or that's playing.
Dude, seriously.
Being significant. I mean, not a practice squad guy or an undergrad that's still 2 years away from getting his playing time. This is because a lot of the names that are on that did not participate. I mean, pretty important pieces to this roster, Jared.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of guys that I came up with, and they're all seniors with the exception of Jamal Sam. So I have no idea what's going on with Jamal Sam.
They're all significant contributors to this team. This is what I see. Sincere McCormick, Tariq Woolen, Lorenzo Dantzler, Leroy Watson, Trevor Harmon, Brandon Rolfe, Aquarius Henry, Jamal Sam. And most of those names have been pretty important factors for us consistently week in and week out.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like they're seniors. So whether they were hurt, they're going to the NFL, they didn't go to class, whatever. It's those underclassmen like Jamal Sam and whoever else that we missed on our list. If those guys have academic issues going on, I'm really, really concerned.
It's a big problem.
Right. Yeah. The seniors, I mean, like we said earlier, it's really normal to have a lot of seniors miss your bowl game, right? I think we saw it. A&M had it happen to them this week. They opted out of their bowl game. It's nonstop, right? That's just what happens in bowl season, especially when you're in a lower prestige bowl. But, again, it's just underclassmen.
You keep winning. You have winning seasons consistently year in, year out. Start getting some more buy-in from the campus. You start getting some professors juicing the numbers a little bit, baby. Just getting those guys by. We just turn the other cheek, you know what I'm saying?
You got to show up. Like, if you show up and you go to your tutorials and stuff, like, you're never going to fail.
Right. Yeah, this is true.
It's strictly effort. 100% effort.
I mean, dude, I'll go back to Frank Wilson days, all hands on deck. But if you're in classes with football players and you know some of them are struggling, I need you to reach out, give a helping hand.
Dude, these guys have these guys have all the help they need, dude. It's whether they want to or not, right?
That's right. It's nothing. And dude, come on. You're in 4 classes, right? I mean, I don't know what the requirements are, but I imagine, if you're a scholarship athlete, you got to be enrolled in maybe 12 hours.
I think so.
I can't imagine. Look, I understand the schedule is strenuous and it's hard as hell, but I can't imagine it's too many guys taking 15-hour course loads on the roster.
Not many, no.
You got to be able to get this done, man, because it's never been an issue here before. And to have guys have important player positions missing games, real regular season games next year because there's a grade issue. Oh man, that would be unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. And like I said, we're probably not going to get the details on this stuff, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind, right?
And that's a big thing. All the winning in the world does not fix that, and that can be detrimental to a coach and his front office, right? His athletics department. That can be a problem if it's consistent.
Yeah, and it actually can impact
their contract,
wins
right?
And losses. Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, like we're seeing teams get into bowl games this year at 5-7 because they had a high academic progress rate, which pretty much means your guys are passing their classes, they're getting their degrees and all of that. We've seen UNT get into, I think, 1, if not 2 bowl games now that they only got into because they had that high APR score, right? So, it's important to take care of that stuff for a multitude of reasons, but it's also a sign of like culture issues too. When guys aren't taking care of their business, there's usually more things going on within the program that are cause for concern.
That's right. And it's all about on and off the field, right? Frank Wilson was always talking about great men, making great men, right? In and out, and so it's that sort of ideology. Got to be great everywhere. Got to take care of business everywhere.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, that'll wrap it up for the football talk on this podcast. We are going to do a Patreon episode probably later this week, if I had to guess. But we're going to go through the senior class. We're going to look at the guys that are coming back versus the guys that are moving on. And we're going to give them a grade on how their career went. And then we'll kind of talk about the dynamics of the class in general. I really like to do these look backs because I think it's important to evaluate, what kinds of players panned out well for UTSA versus which that didn't. So I keep a lot of data on that stuff because I think it's interesting to think about and talk about. So we'll be doing that on Patreon. So that should be an interesting discussion. Should be
I mean, we grade them out. We try to equate, where on the, totem pole of all time at this position, where is this guy? How good of this guy, is he the model of what we want here? Or is he more of this? So it's really good. And you talk about a lot of data. A lot of data is an understatement. Yeah, Jared's got files on this sort of stuff.
I really do.
It's always really good content. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll probably have some more content on Patreon throughout the off season to look at that kind of stuff. Because I'll also break it down by recruiting class as well. I think I'm actually a year behind on those. So more to come on that. Our next regular episode is going to be a fun one because it's going to be a collaboration podcast with the Bird podcast. So it's a student-led podcast that covers all things UTSA. If you guys haven't listened to them, definitely check them out. And we're just going to be talking kind of look back on the season, talking big picture, how much UTSA has impacted the city of San Antonio with this season. Also get their perspective as students and what it was like, being in the student section for all these crazy games and all of that. So definitely looking forward to that next week.
Yes, indeed. What up to the Bird? Very excited to be a part of their podcast. It's going to be good stuff. And yes, that is it for the football talk, as Jared says. But on Thursday, UTSA basketball begins the conference slate, as if games do not get canceled. Sunday against Lady of the Lake did get canceled due to COVID protocols. A lot of guys missing, I think, on both sides, on both teams.
I think so.
UTSA has had a few guys out, but we're supposed to be getting some in. Jordan Ivy Curry, Phoenix Ford, Alu. But so Thursday in Murfreesboro against Middle Tennessee, we will be kicking off conference basketball. And yes, as 2022 arrives, as the fall transitions into the spring, Alamo Dome Audible becomes Convocation Center Audible, and we start talking basketball, baby.
It becomes the convo combos.
The combo combos. That's it. Combo combos. That's right. I forgot that. Oh yes. So we'll keep you posted with the basketball news, baby. Believe that.
Definitely. I pulled up the schedule. I was shocked to see that UTSA 6-6 on the year. It's been very unconvincing 500 record.
We had a really quality win over Sam Houston in the Toyota Center here in Houston, right? And
I was there. It's on hand.
And then it took a really tough loss. Got our butts kicked by UTRGV, little cousin down the road. So it's going to be kind of a volatile, maybe up and down sort of slate as we get into conference play.
It's tough because that Sam Houston, even going back to the 3-point loss to Grand Canyon and then the loss over Sam Houston, it really felt like this team was starting to figure it out. They're starting to put it together.
They looked good, cohesive,
and then
they looked cohesive.
You get slapped in the face by COVID. You got 3 contributors out with COVID. McNeil, I think, is still coming back from an injury. So just kind of how it's been for this team this year, but hopefully get into conference play. They'll find a little bit of stability and maybe etch out a few wins that they shouldn't, a few big upsets. And if they can stay around 500 this year, I'll be super happy. But I'm a little skeptical on that. I hope they prove me very, very wrong.
And then there was one other piece of news coming out of the Convocation Center, if you will, and that's going to be our new women's volleyball coach, a former UTSA assistant coach, now head coach, Carol Price Torok.
Yeah, so I haven't read up on her too much, but my impression of her is she's a bit of a program builder. So her last head coaching job was at Bradley.
That's right.
She came into Bradley. I think they had only won 30 games in 10 years or something like that. They really hadn't been all that successful. And she stepped in and just kind of raised the floor there quite a bit. I think she's won.
She's been there for 6 years.
Yeah.
She won Conference Coach of the Year there in Missouri Valley. She out of 85 wins in her time there, 3 conference tournaments, and then they were invited to actually the National Invitational Sweet 16,
which I guess is like the NIT for volleyball.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we probably got a little bit spoiled with Dr. Campos' recent hires, but it came to other sports. But I do like the direction they're going in to get a younger coach and someone that has had a lot of success on the recruiting trail. Someone that can build this program back up to where it should be, where it has been historically. And we'll see how it goes. I need to do more research on her to get a good feel for what the program's going to look like. But it was definitely time for some new energy. That's for sure.
It was 30 conference wins over 10 years before Price Rock took over Bradley.
So they were drastically awful.
Yeah, definitely. So probably a little bit lower than we currently find ourselves on the volleyball side.
Yeah. Well, I hope they do like an introductory press conference with her. I know with the holidays, it's like not a great time to do it. But hopefully we can get a better feel for how she runs her program and all that stuff.
I would love that. Yeah. I would love to hear about that. Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled. Yes, we'll be covering as many sports as we can here in addition to basketball. That includes volleyball. So
yeah. And it's that time of year where I got to put it out there. If you're interested in covering any non-football sports for Almond and Audible in any type of capacity, please hit us up. We're easy to find. We would love to have some guest contributors to talk.
We need contributors. We want contributors, especially, if you guys got some experience, we would love to have, a UTSA lady who's played volleyball and knows the game and wants to cover some volleyball pieces. I mean, it'd be great. So yeah, please, let us know, guys. We've got so much here in the world of UTSA athletics that needs coverage, and we're trying to cover it all. We can't do it by ourselves. So please come on, let us know.
Well said.
Yeah, send us a shout.
All right, again, well, I hope you guys have a great conclusion to your holiday season. Please be safe on New Year's. COVID is going crazy right now, but primarily I want to say be careful with the fireworks, because I've almost lost fingers to fireworks.
Wow.
And it's easy to get a little carried away on the drinking and say, oh, I'm just going to light this fuse here and just chunk this thing. Just give the fireworks the respect that they deserve.
They demand,
the power, the gunpowder that's packed into it. Think of it that way, right? If you were loading a cannonball, you wouldn't haphazardly light the fuse and let it roll, right? So,
dude, I love that call. Great word of caution out there.
Don't turn yourself into, who is that player for the Giants?
JPP.
Don't turn into JPP.
Yeah,
please. Please. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. A special thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers that continue to support us throughout the off season. We know it can be tempting to let your subscription lapse during the off season, but we definitely are going to make it well worth your while with all the content we have coming for you guys. We have a lot of stuff planned out, so a lot more on the way. And again, thanks for your support. We'll see you guys back next week.